This last Shabbos was Shabbos Neshamos. We passed the 3 weeks, we passed Tisha B'Av, and then we go into Neshamos. What's Neshamos? Neshamos is a perek in Yeshayahu. Neshamos Ami Yomer Elekechem. Be consoled. What be consoled? My people should be consoled. The Gula is coming. Now, Shai was talking before the Churban Bayis Rishon, and he foresaw that there was going to be a Churban. He foresaw that there's going to be Gullus, and it's going to be a long Gullus. But Klal Yisrael, don't give up. Neshamos. Hold on to your Emunah. There's going to be a Geula. The Geula is going to come. Either before the time, it says in the pasuk, Be'ita achisheno. So Be'ita, in the time, I'm going to hurry it up. So the Chazal asks a question: if it's in the time, there's a set time for it. What do you mean I'm going to hurry it up? Achisheno. And if I'm going to hurry it up, that's not the right time. It's before its time of the Gula. So the Chazal and Sanhedrin, they understand that there are 2 different times. If we're Zoicha with Schus, Klal Yisrael does Tshuva and they have Schus, they could bring the Gula Achishena, before its time. But if that doesn't happen, or there could be, they will get so much Isurim, so much torment and persecution. So much torment and persecution that
was that planned? You got the cell phone once you said torment?
Yeah.
So they get so much torment and persecution. So that will wipe away their Averis, and they'll get it Achishana, before the time. And if not, and if that doesn't happen, then it's Be'ito. There's a set time, there's an end, it's got to happen. And all the Meforshim say that we've already passed all the Achishenas, all the hurry up times, and we're about to approach the Be'ito. It's got to come. The Gula has to come.
Where's it written that 6,000? That the end is 6,000 years.
It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin.
6,000 years.
Gemara in Sanhedrin.
We're left with how much? 200?
240, and whatever it is. Yeah. That's only, there is a day that's 7,000. There's a day that is 7,000.
Date is up to.
I don't want to go into it.
No, you're saying
Up to 6,000. Yeah, up to 6,000.
Up to 6,000.
But we can't know. I don't want. This is not for now. There's 180 years missing. The calendar is off by 180 years. There's a big discussion of it, where the 180 years go. They make a whole cheshbon. There's a lot of svarim written on it. It could be we have an extra 180 years at to add on to the count. The calendar is off by 180 years. We'll never know until the Moshiach comes and he clarifies all these things. I don't want to go into it because we don't know. We don't know. And there's no way you can know until the Moshiach comes, and then everything will be explained. It bothers me. It bothers me. Maybe it bothers you, but it bothers me. Yeshaya is saying, be consoled, Klal Yisrael. We are here now. That was 2,500 years ago, approximately, that Yeshaya lived. You'll make the cheshbon exactly. We're already 2,000 years into from the Churban Bayis Sheni, and Yeshaya was in the end of the Bayis Rishon. So it was like 2,500 years ago. So So he's consoling all the people that aren't here anymore. They're not here. They never saw the Gula. I was expecting, I had two great Rabbanim that were my teachers, my Rebbes. I had Rav Scheinberg Zatzal and Rav Zadel Zatzal. And I was sure that they would see the Mashiach, and they're not here anymore. So how do you console these people? How does the consolation work for all these people?
2,700 years ago.
So the first thing that we have to know is that we don't know. We don't know anything.
You gotta know that you don't know.
It's very important because we make cheshbonis, we want Mashiach now. We make all sorts of cheshbonis and what's going to be and what's... You ask anybody, why do they want the Mashiach? Yeah, it's going to stop the inflation, and then I'm going to have a good business, and the economy is going to be good, and the political situation is going to straighten out, and it's going to be a wonderful... It's not what the Mashiach is going to be here for. Mashiach is here to bring Klal Yisrael back to what they used to be, what we used to be at the time of Yaakov Avinu. That all of us should be able to be great tzaddikim. Can you imagine all of Klal Yisrael, all these people, even simple Yidden are able to be like big tzaddikim and live a life of tzidkus, of righteousness. That's what the Mashiach is going to come. Everybody's going to believe in a Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's what Mashiach is going to bring.
Who are you gonna fight with?
Excuse me?
Who are you gonna fight with? What's the thing? How do you live? What do you gotta get in arguments with people, right?
We have to understand that no neshama ever gets lost. No neshama ever gets lost. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a certain amount of neshamas. Adam HaRishon was created, and in him, in your body, for example, I'll give you a mashal. In your body, they say there is about 130 trillion cells, right? Can you imagine? In your body, in the human body, there are about 130 trillion cells, little ta'im, all the different cells. These are the physical cells. These are the physical cells. In the neshama of Adam HaRishon were all the neshamas of the whole world that were eventually going to come out. All the people in the whole world that eventually, all the neshamas were in the neshama of Adam HaRishon. And we had the Orach Chaim. I mentioned the Orach Chaim last time, 2 weeks ago. So I mentioned the Orach Chaim. Adam HaRishon, when he did the Chet, so he gave the koyach to the Sitra Achra, to the Satan, to take in captivity millions of neshamas. That's why we find so many neshamas. They're decrepit. They're soiled. They're tullied. They're sullied. You see that they're evil people. They're into the worst.
Democracy.
There are all these neshamas. Now, some of them are going to be totally lost, and some of them are totally lost, and some of them eventually they have to come back. All these neshamas are always around. All these neshamas are always around. Iyuv was a great tzaddik. At the beginning of the Sefer Iyuv, this is a mashal of how Kodesh Baruch Hu runs the world and does things and why people suffer. So it says the Satan came to the Kodesh Baruch Hu and he said, I want to test Iyuv. And Kodesh Baruch Hu says, he's my big tzaddik. He's like Avram Avinu. He's as big as Avraham Avinu. If Eov would have succeeded in his test and passed the test, just like we say Elokei Avraham, we would have said Elokei Eov. But he didn't pass.
What was different than Avraham Avinu? Avraham Avinu also had 10.
He had 10, so the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave him.
Wasn't good enough? Why did someone want to try give another?
No, this is against Eov. No, Eov was a tzaddik. Eov had gained an ability to be like Avraham Avinu. He had gained an ability to be like Avraham Avinu on that level of tzidkus, but he didn't succeed in passing the test. You have to learn the Sefer Eov. Learn the Sefer Eov. But it says Eov had a taina on the Kodesh.
was not in some point.
No.
He had a...
Rabbi, is there a book that we can learn about you in English that...
Fine lines.
Is there a book that...
That's a pitch for my Sefer? Yeah. Pitch my Sefer. Mission Possible. Fine Lines of Faith. Mission Possible. Anyway, but he was not considered a Russia for cursing, like cursing the day he was born. Even though he lost the Nesoyin, he didn't pass the Nesoyin, but of course Baruch Hu, so he gave him back. He gave him reward. At least he got reward in this world. He gave him back everything that he lost. But anyway, he did not get to that level of being like Avraham Avinu. So Eov was being tormented by the Satan, and he had tainas on the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and then at the end, Kodesh Baruch Hu came to him and said, "You have questions on me? You have questions on me? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the world? Do you know your where? Do you know your where?" When the Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world, he created all the Neshamas, and each Neshama was put in a different place with different abilities and different personalities and different situations and different potentials. And it depends where you were. Where were you, Eov, when I created the world? Because all the Neshamas were in Adam Arishon. Where were you in Adam Arishon? Do you understand why I did this to you? So the Chafetz Chaim gives a mashal about this. Whenever anything bad happens, always remember the mashal of the Chafetz Chaim. You get a country guy. Guy came from Ohio somewhere.
Youngstown.
And he comes to a big shul in New York, he never saw a shul with 2,000 seats, goes to bells or whatever. He never saw such a big shul. His little shul has got maybe 30 seats, and he goes to a big shul of 1,000 seats, and he sits there, and the Gabbai goes, "Ya Amod, the Kriyas Torah," and the Gabbai calls out, "Ya Amod, Shmerel from on this side, Ya Amod, Beryl from over here. Yamod from the back, from the front. Arba Kanfos Haaretz." He calls out the Zion Aliyahs. So after the davening, this fellow, he goes over to the Gabbai and he says, "Gabbai, I enjoyed the davening very much, but I don't understand why you're running the shul like this. Calling everybody out helter-skelter and giving aliyahs all over the place. Wouldn't it be more organized? You take the front row the first week, and then the second row the second week, and then the third row the third week, and that way you have an organized shul, and then everybody will get an aliyah, and you can keep track of it. But you have to go all over the place every week. It has no seder. It's just total chaos." So the Gabbai smiled. He says, "Oh, yeah. You come to shul 1 week and you want to understand what's going on. Do you know that 2 weeks ago, the man in the front row he had a yortzeit. So he had to get his aliyah that week. The man on the third bench, he was sick for 3 weeks, so if I would have gone according to the Seder, he would have missed his turn, and he would never have gotten an aliyah. So I had to give him this week, because now he came back. And the fellow sitting next to him, he's getting married. So if I would have waited, I had to give him his aliyah today. If I would have waited for the 4th week, he would never have gotten his aliyah on time. So if I'd follow you, nobody would get an aliyah when they need it. But this way, I hold cup and I juggle it, and everybody gets what they need. But your way, nobody would be happy. So the Chafetz Chaim says, we come to the world for 70 or 80 years. How long are you going to last? How long are you going to last? 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, you know? How long are you going to last? And you want to understand everything from the beginning of time, how it fits in from the beginning of time till the time of the Mashiach comes. You have to understand the whole picture. You have to understand the whole picture. There's an Arizal, there's an amazing Arizal in the Shar HaGilgulim, and he says, you think that people are getting born every year, and they're new neshamas, right? How many kids do you have? Right? They're all new neshamas. They're all new neshamas. The Arizal says there's almost no new neshamas left. Everybody has been here. All of you have been here already. You've been here in a previous Gilgul. Why do you have to come back?
I met you.
My grandpa messed up.
Yeah. Your boys are in
You're an
special
evil
position.
person, I remember you.
So I have 2 Davids.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us into this world for a reason, to pass a test, to recognize Amunah. But Amunah and B'tachon are the basic test of our existence in this world. Are you going to recognize that there's Ribono Shel Olam? Are you going to be a good Jew? You're going to follow the Torah? You're going to follow the mitzvahs? You have a big job ahead of you. Besides the personal, maybe you have a personal mission. Everybody's got a mission in this world. And most of us have not, somewhere along the line in our past lives, have not fulfilled that mission, and we may have blown it. We've done Averis. So Kodesh Baruch Hu is an Ava Rachamim, so he wants to have Rachmanis on us. So he gives us a second chance. He gives us a second chance. A neshama goes up to Shemayim. And they say, well, we have a problem. You did such and such and such and such and such and such. So they want to send him to Gehenna. You have to get cleaned up. Gehenna is not a torture room, it's not a sadistic torture room. Gehenna is a dry cleaning service. That's what Gehenna is. It's a dry cleaning service. We have to get cleaned up in order we can go to Gan Eden. You got your Shabbos suit, right? And last Shabbos you spilled wine on it. So it's got a big stain on it. Now you're going to go into the chasna. Now you have a chasna on Sunday night, and you've only got that one shirt. Are you going to go? You're going to walk into that chasna with that shirt that you spilled the wine on Shabbos? You got to get rid of it. You got to clean that stain out. So we're about to get into Kodesh Baruch Hu wants to send us to the chasna, to Olam Haba. Now you're going to walk in with all this dirty clothes. Kodesh Baruch Hu says he's got to clean it up. So he wants to send us to the dry cleaning service. So the guy says, wait, one second. That's too hot for me over there. Do you have air conditioning over there? No, I don't think they have air conditioning. So he doesn't want to go. So we'll give you an option. We'll send you back down again, and we'll give you a second chance. So he says, no, do me a favor. I blew it the first time. I'll take Gehenna. So they took the guy, and they bring him, and he's He's 500 miles away from Gehenna, and his bones are popping already. And he says, I didn't know it was that hot. No, 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 no. I'll take the other option. I'll come back again. So they send him back. So we are Gilgulim. And they send him back for a second chance. And the second chance is a way of our correcting the situation. In 1827, there was a terrible gezerah called the Cantonists. The Tsar, Nikolai, so he loved the Jews, and he felt that they would do so wonderful in the Tsar's army. He wanted to enlist all the Jews. It was his way of ending the Jewish race. He would take all the young boys. There wouldn't be any young boys left, and he'd convert them all in the army. Right, and that he'd also have free soldiers. So he made a gezerah. Every city had a quota, 20, 30 boys, 8-year-old boys, and they had to come up with the quota every year, and they were sent to the army for 25 to 30 years. None of this 4-year business, 25 to 30 years. Yeah, they were sent to Siberia. They were raised by Goyish farmers. They were treated terribly, persecuted, whipped, starved. And at the age of 18, when they were physically, old enough to go into the army, they were enlisted into the army for 20 or 30 years. Now, a life like that, not much of your Yiddishkeit remains. And this was a terrible gezerah. They used to have chappers. They had chappers. They used to go around and they used to have a list of which children. Of course, the rich kids paid off the Russian government that their kids should not be on the list. So they looked around for the poor kids. So all the poor kids, when they went to Cheder, they're walking in the street. So the chapper would grab them and then send them to the army, send them to Siberia. They went to Siberia. These were the chappers.
They were Jews? They were going.
Even the Jews. A lot of the chappers were even Jews. They were just like you had capos in the Second World in the Second World War. So you had these chappers during this time period, in the 1850s. There's a lot of Jews with terrible midos. Everybody, all the Gedolim, they cried out. They made gezerahs of tefillah, Yom Tainis. What's happening? They asked the Kodesh Baruch Hu, what's happening? Rabbi Chanan heard from the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim was an amazing person. And he knew a lot of secrets about why things are happening. So he asked the Chafetz Chaim, why are there Cantonistim? Mashma, even in 1930s, in 1930s, it could be the gezerah was still in existence when the 1930, in the Chafetz Chaim passed away in 1930, so he was born around 1830. So in the late 1800s, the Chafetz Chaim was around at the time of they were chapping the Cantonistim. So they asked the Chafetz Chaim, why is this happening? So the Chafetz Chaim says, I'll give you an example. Bayis Rishon, is there avodah zarah today? Almost nothing, right? Avodah zarah, idol worship.
Christianity.
Not like them. I mean, it was a different type. Christianity is something, and even today, there's no real Christians. They don't really believe. It's not like it was then. In Bayis Rishon, there was a Yetzer Hara, there was a taiva to do avodah zarah. We can't understand it. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin about Menashe, and he was an Oved Avodah Zorah, and he forced everybody to be Oved Avodah Zorah, and he spread it out all over Klal Yisrael. This Kodesh Baruch Hu gave the Satan an ability to create a magnet inside of everybody, a taiva, just like today we have taivas for taivas noshim, or taivas olam hazeh, or taiva to eat steak, right? We have all these taivas for they had a taiva to do avodah zorah. We can't understand this, and it was an all encompassing pull to do avodah zorah, and almost all of Klal Yisrael had been over on avodah zorah in one form or another. There was a ma'aseh with Gidon. Gidon was fighting the Moabim, and he wanted to bring only pure people to the army. So he had an army of 10,000 men. So he had them go down to the river, and everybody should go drink some water. So those who sat down by the river and put the water in, they cupped the water in their hands, he knew that they were okay. But a lot of people, they crouched down on their knees and went close to the water, and they drank that way, crouched down. So he knew if they know how to crouch, so that means they were habituated in bowing down. That was one of the things that they trained themselves in. He wouldn't take anybody who got on his knees. Anybody who got on his knees, he wouldn't take for his army. Out of 10,000 people, he wound up with only 300. Only 300. Everybody else he posseled. And he won the war with 300 men because they were pure. They never did avodah zorah. Chafetz Chaim says that's how prevalent the avodah zorah was in Bayis Rishon. Everybody was chayiv. Avodah zorah means that it's a chesorin in your emunah, a chesorin in your Yiddishkeit. You don't feel totally Yiddish. You don't feel totally committed to Yiddishkeit, to being Jewish. So these neshamas were soiled, and they all died. The whole Bayis Rishon. These neshamas were waiting until 1827. Now make a cheshbon from the Bayis Rishon until 1827. It's probably 800 years, 1,000 years, maybe more. From the first base mikdash, 1827. It's like it's over 2,000 years. They had been floating around for over 2,000 years in Shemayim. They weren't able to get into Gan Eden.
It was completed in 957 BC, so that'd be 2,800 years.
2,800 years. They were floating around in Shemayim. We can't imagine that. We're just waiting over 2,000 years, close to 3,000 years. They were waiting, and the neshamas couldn't get anywhere. So Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Chafetz Chaim says he brought these neshamas back. These were little kids, and their mothers instructed them, make sure you don't give up your Yiddishkeit. They have I don't have time to go through it, but I have a recollection of one of these kids who came back. He was, after being a Cantonist, he was a Russian soldier, a Jewish Russian soldier, and he says he retained his Jewishness. His mother told him, "Don't give in," and they used to whip him. He's had scars where he'd been tortured and whipped and persecuted and beat up. Become a Christian, but eventually the Russians gave it up because only 1 out of 300 kids gave in and to be baptized. The others refused. You know what that is? They refused to give up being Jewish. Now, how Jewish were they? I mean, that's a different. But to relate to yourself as a Jew. In those days, when they wanted to baptize you, make you into a Catholic, or whatever it was in Russia, the Russian Orthodox, but to make you into a Christian, it was a terrible thing. And they held on. And that was their nisoyin. And that was their tikkun. So all these neshamas, these cantonists, they had to go into the army for 20. It's terrible. We can't understand it. But that was the tikkun that they needed for the over the Avodah Zorah. It says there was one time the Chavetz Chaim, he used to go around selling his svarim. Chavetz Chaim used to go around selling his svarim. And so since he was always on the road, he had to go into an inn and he had to eat. So he's sitting in the dining room of this inn, a Jewish inn, kosher. And all in walks this Russian soldier, a real lowlife, gruff person. And he sits down. Give me to eat. He wanted the best goose. In those days, goose was like, he used to eat goose meat. Goose and good vodka. Goose and vodka. So and he was acting very, very nasty to the waitress, and he was making a lot of noise and everything. And the owner of the owner of the inn was trying to placate him and quiet him down, but he wouldn't be quiet. So the Chavetz Chaim looked at him, was watching him, and he stood up like he's about to go over to him. So the innkeeper ran over to the Chavetz. He knew who the Chavetz Chaim was, a big sign. Rebbe, don't start up with him. This guy could kill at the drop of a hat. He was in the Russian army. He was a cantonist. He was in the Russian army for 30 years. Just leave him alone. There's nothing we can do with him, and just placate him and give him whatever he wants. Otherwise, he'll rip the whole restaurant down. So the Chavetz Chaim, he says, "Don't worry, I know how to handle him." He knows how to handle him. So he goes over to him. He gives out his hand, says, "Shalom Aleichem," and the guy, nobody's been so, ever wanted to do that to him, says, "Shalom Aleichem, Rebbe." He knew he was a Rebbe, Goes, "Shalom Aleichem. What's your name?" He says, "Grisha." "My name is Gregory, but in Yiddish it's Grisha." In Yiddish it's Grisha for Gershon. Says, "Oh, you must have, you've been in the Russian army now for 30 years. It must have been so hard. You were 8 years old, right? How old were you when they chapped you? 8 years old? Yeah, how'd you know, Rebbe? How'd you know? You were 8 years old. And they tortured you. And they beat you up. Yeah. That's what they did to me. But you were very strong. And you held on. And you didn't forget that you were Yiddish. And they tried to baptize you, right? How'd you know, Rebbe? How'd you know? And they beat you up. Yeah. You see the scars? You see the scars over here? And he showed him the scars. He says, that's what they whipped me until I fainted. But I wouldn't give in. I wouldn't give in. Chavetz Chaim says, "You know how big you are? You know how great you are? Oy, you're such a tzaddik." And he talked to him like that, and the guy was mamish crying, and he calmed down, and he kept up a relationship with the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim got him to start doing whatever he could. He didn't know anything. He didn't know how to read Aleph Beis. He didn't know how to keep Shabbos. Didn't know about mitzvahs, but he started becoming closer because of the Chavetz Chaim. But this is what they did to the kids. This is what they did to the kids. So Rabbi Chanan understood, everybody asks, why the Holocaust? Now, I don't want to get into dangerous ground over here because I once said some things about the Holocaust and I got it over the head from a Holocaust survivor, so I'm saying what Rabbi Chanan said, and and everybody should be moichel me. But Rabbi Chanan, he was before that. He understood what was going on. He went back and he got killed by the Nazis in Kovna. And he understood what was happening in the Holocaust. Why was there such suffering in the Holocaust? That the Nazis were given such power to torture and to murder and persecute so many hundreds of 600,000 Yidden were murdered, and how many others were persecuted and tortured. By the Nazis. And Rabbi Chanan brings this Maisa down of the Cantonist. This he doesn't quite say it, he's hinting at it. But the same thing has happened in Germany. Why were these Neshamos? We asked, why were the Tzaddikim? Why does Tzaddikim have to go through such suffering in the Holocaust? Because they're not suffering for the things they did in this lifetime. They're suffering for they were here before. Everybody was here before, and everybody has a cheshbon in Shemayim, and they had to get a nesoyin. Are they going to hold on to their emunah? The Holocaust was a nesoyin. Are you going to retain your faith in the Kodesh Baruch Hu in spite of all the suffering? Remember Mayor Birnbaum?
Lieutenant Birnbaum?
Lieutenant Birnbaum. Lieutenant Birnbaum. He wrote a book. I remember. He lived down the road from me. Lieutenant Birnbaum. He was one of the soldiers who liberated Buchenwald. So when he was in Buchenwald, and he was trying to help the poor Yidden, like, you know, get back on their feet. They were mamish. They were dying. Nothing was left of them. They were dying away from starvation and from disease. So one person came over to Mayor Birnbaum, Lieutenant Birnbaum. He spoke Yiddish, I assume. He spoke Yiddish. He was able to speak to them.
He was an interpreter for Eisenhower from Yiddish to English, so he calls him a Rebbe.
Yeah. His son was in my yeshiva. So somebody came over to him and says, "Do you know Rabbi Chanan Wasserman?" Yeah, I was sure. He was in New York in 1938. I remember Rabbi Chanan Wasserman in New York in 1938. He came to raise money for his yeshiva. He says, "Come over here. I'm happy I found somebody who remembers Rabbi Chanan." So he pulled him over. I want to tell you, I was in Kovna when they rounded us all up. I was lucky I escaped. But we were all locked up in Kovna by the Lithuanians. Lithuanians locked us up, and then they brought us over to the Nazis to finish us up. And they all asked Rabbi Chanan, "What's going on? What's happening? Why is all this happening to the Yidden in Europe? All the Yidden, the persecutions, the torture, the suffering." So Rabbi Chanan gave a mashal. This is a wonderful mashal. He says there was once a city man, a city guy. He never saw a farm in his life. Never saw a farm in his life. You know, you make a bracha, motzi lechem min haaretz. We don't understand why it's a motzi lechem min haaretz. It's a motzi lechem in a supermarket. You know, that's what we think. You know, that's about the extent of it. You know, you have no clue what goes into making a loaf of bread. So the guy went to the farmer and he says, "Show me how you do things." So he brought him to the field, and he sees a beautiful field, and it's all that green grass. It's all the green grass, and then he takes his plow and he plows over the whole field. "You're ruining the field. You had beautiful green grass. What are you doing?" The farmer says, "Patience. You come here. Let's see. So after he plows over the field, so then he takes a whole big sack of beautiful grain, wheat berries, the wheat things, wonderful wheat berries, and he starts throwing it into the ground. So why are you ruining that? Boy, it's good food. You can make breakfast cereal out of that. What are you throwing it into the dirt for? He says, calm down. And he covers over all the wheat berries. He says, come back in 3 weeks, whatever it is, a month. So he comes back in 3 weeks, a month, and he sees, beautiful. It's all been grown up already. And he's got, oh, now I understand. You got even a better grass over here. You got better grass, right? You improve the grass. He's got beautiful grass. So then he takes his sickle or whatever it is, and he starts cutting down. Now you're cutting down the grass. You just grew the grass. Now you're cutting it down again. Calm down. That's right. And then he takes all the grass and he starts pounding it. What do you if you wanted to take it to use it, so use it, but why pound it? So then he got all these new wheat berries. Oh, now you got more wheat berries. Now I understand. You got now 100 times the amount of wheat berries than what you planted. That's wonderful. Yeah, right. Then he takes all the wheat berries that he grew and he takes it to the mill. Says, oh no, now you're going to make dust. So he takes all the wheat berries and he grinds it. He turns it into dust. He says, what are you going to do with dust? There's nothing here. There's just dust. Just calm down. Just be patient. And then he takes all this dust, and then he takes some of the dust and puts it into a bowl, and then he pours water on it. Oh, now you're going to make mud, right? Now you're going to take the dust and make mud out of it. You're going to make a mud pie. What do you think you are, a 5-year-old making a mud pie? Calm down. So then he kneads it, and then he makes a beautiful loaf. Oh, it looks nice now. Like Play-Doh. Looks nice. It's a beautiful thing. That's very nice. And then he takes the loaf, and he sticks it into the oven. Oh, after all this, now you're going to take your hard work, and now you're going to burn it up. And he puts it into the oven. He says, just be patient. And he waits 10, 15 minutes. There's a beautiful aroma coming out. And he then takes out the loaf of bread, puts it on the table, says, Macha Moitzi. Says, the farmer is a moshel for the Ribbono Shel Olam. Rabbi Chanan says, the foolish guess that's Klal Yisrael. We see how God plows, cuts, makes dust and mud, and he puts his people into the oven. But he knows the end. He knows from the beginning exactly what the end is going to be. And he sees what's going to come out of it, the beautiful hot loaf of bread, that after all of this, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take these neshamas, and for these neshamas, I asked the Kasha, for all the neshamas that passed away, they're not here anymore. So what good is it, the Gula? We're all coming back. No neshama ever gets lost. The Gula is going to come, and all the good neshamas are going to come back. We are now living in, you see things happening that we know that this is the Ikvus of the Mashiach. We've discussed that already. The Chafetz Chaim says right after World War I, they asked the Chafetz Chaim, is it over? Is this the Gog and Magog? And he says, no, there's another war. And that's it? No, that's not Gog and Magog. There'll be a break, and then there'll be a third world war. And the third world war, that's going to be the Milchamas Gog and Magog. We're getting closer. We see things happening. And Reb Chatzkel, this is what I said last time, that Reb Chatzkel, he said that this is not a milchama. This is not a milchama of battles between nations. This is not United States against Russia or Israel against Iran. This is a milchama of Emunah. Kadosh Baruch Hu is just like he tested the Kantonistim, and just like he tested the people Nebuch in the Holocaust. Are you going to hold on to your Emunah? So this is what our job is, to hold on to our Emunah. We see things happening today before the Bias of Mashiach. The Chavetz Chaim already said, you see, why are there so many things happening? Why are there so many things happening? And life is so topsy-turvy. Some people lose money, some people gain money, everything's going crazy. So it says the Kodesh Baruch Hu, used to be everything went, the style of life used to last for a long time. People used to live in a shtetl for 1,000 years. Even 1,000 years, they could live in one shtetl. You know, the whole family, mishpacha from all the Alta Zaydas, they used to be all together. And things didn't change from one generation to the other. Now it's constantly changing. Kadosh Baruch Hu is a big shop. When you got a giant warehouse, a department store, and they're closing up, and they have cheshbonos, They have cheshbonos, they have sales, and people owe them money. And people want credit. So until now they gave credit. But when he's closing up shop, when the store is closing up, so he takes out his book, and he takes all the cheshbonos. He wants hard cash. No more credit. Cash on the barrelhead. So the Chavetz Chaim says that's the generation that we live in now. Until now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was able to give us credit. I'll let it ride for a while. I'll see how you do in the next generation, in the next Gilgul. But there are no more Gilgulim. We're getting to the time in the Mashiach when it's all over. So Kodesh Baruch Hu is he's collecting. He wants to collect his debts.
There's no way of having another Gilgul after Mashiach. That's it. Game over. Done. Like
New world. New cheshbon. It's a new.
I thought. Okay.
It's a new cheshbon. It's new cheshbon. Now it's the time of schar. It's now the time for the schar.
What's just
why
a
can't-
question? I mean, maybe it's too big question for 5 minutes. What's the Olam Haba, the Netzach Netzachim, the Olam Haba, which is not in this world. This is a spiritual world.
Okay.
The Mashiach is going to come. You have Chesed Mesim in this world or in the spiritual world.
Spiritual world. You have to realize what we call Olam Haba is not the real Olam Haba. That when a person passes on, just very, very quick, when a person passes on, he goes to a Gan Eden, an Olam HaNeshamas, an Olam HaNeshamas. And then there are cheshbonos there. He could go to. He's got to get cleaned up. He's got to go to Henem, or maybe he's a big enough tzaddik that he's getting a schar. Hopefully that we'll get the schar. They say after Yud Beis Chodesh there's no more Gehenim. Every Kodesh Baruch Hu has his whole cheshbon for each and every individual, but that is in Gan Eden. Now after the Mashiach comes, after Mashiach comes. However long the Mashiach Satan will be, I don't know. Will it be 100 years, 300 years, 1,000 years? I don't know. Because it was.
Because there is no answer. Or you just,
But no, it depends. It says we've eaten up already 2,000 years of Yemos Mashiach. Yemos Mashiach was supposed to start 2,000 years ago, but we're holding by the end already. Now, Kodesh Baruch Hu is a good kunstmacher. He knows how to speed things up. After that, then he does a great birur. You have to know that we're in the great birur. What is the great birur? That he's now testing every neshama from Adam Arishon, all the neshamas that were in Adam Arishon, he's testing them. The ones who hold on, they will be Zoichet Olam Haba, to Yemos Mashiach. The ones who don't hold on to their Yiddishkeit, they don't hold on to their Emunah, so they're going to get lost. It says a lot of people, a lot of Yidden are not going to make it. They're going to die. I don't know what kind of tragedies we're going to have. I don't want to say bad things, but it's going to be. We don't know.
they're going to lose Mashiach, but they're going to get Olam Haba. It's Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Halak Olam Haba.
Oh, it could be they'll get Olam Haba. Call Yisrael, Yesh Lahem Chelik. They have a Chelik, could be they lost it. They have a Chelik they could have had. Are they going to get there? It depends what they did. So then there's the great, the Shomer Amunim says, we are now holding by the great Birur. Whose side are you on? You want to be Mavir or everybody? Those who make it, doesn't mean you have to be the big Tzaddik. But if you hold on to your Munah that I want to be a good Yid, so you get your Olam Haba. Kol Yisrael, Yesh Lem Chelik Olam Haba. Doesn't have to be a big tzaddik. Could be as long as a Pashut Yid, but he's a good person. But you see, look around the Meretz Knickers and the Schwarz-Yor and these people who Soros, George Soros. He's not going to get an Olam Haba. A person like him, even though he's Jewish.
His name was Soros?
That's why his name is Soros. Yeah. Right. So there's a lot of Yidden that are not going to make it to Olam Haba. He started off. Every Yid had an ability, had tests in his lifetime. He was able to pass. If he would have passed that test sometime in his lifetime, he would have made it. But he blew it, and you see that he's in the clutches of the Yetzer Hara. You see from his whole attitude, he's in the clutches of the Yetzer Hara. After Yemoisa Mashiach, and then we rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, and we bring back the Sanhedrin, and we bring back the kingdom. And then in the physical world we'll have Yemoisa Mashiach, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will destroy this world, and then He will rebuild it, and that'll be Olam Haba. It'll be a combination of the material body and the neshama. No neshama gets lost, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows how. He just like you take a seed and it disintegrates into the ground and then it grows again. Disappears for a while. So Kosh Baruch can do that with the whole world, and then it'll grow again.
It's like what's it called? Metamorphosis.
Like a butterfly.
Yeah, metamorphosis.
Like a butterfly, it totally changes. So that'll be an Olam Haba. We don't understand what Olam Haba is exactly. It's a combination of the body that we have, and plus, but we will be totally spiritual, like Adam HaRishon was before the Chet. That's what Kadosh Baruch Hu, if he would have waited 3 hours until Shabbos came in, he would have gotten into Olam Haba right away. We could have skipped over the 6,000 years of.
Moshe Mashiach is a physical world.
Physical world. The Rambam says Moshe Mashiach.
It's a period of time.
It's a period of time where everything is normal.
Olam Haba is
Separation between.
Olam Haba is Netzach Nesachim. Yes.
The Moshe Mashiach is this world. Beis HaMikdash is limited to a specific time.
We're going to rebuild. It'll be the third Beis HaMikdash, the third Medina.
But that's not the
It won't be Medinat Yisrael. It'll be Medina's HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
when senior. No?
So this, I just want to end up the Rav Chatzkel says the Iker now. Every one of us has to work on Amunah and B'tochen. We don't know what kind of plans the Kodesh Baruch Hu has for us, but we see things happening. We see also things are happening now that it's unbelievable. The pace, like Kodesh Baruch Hu is hurrying it up, and the koyach of the forces of evil, they're getting darker and darker, and that's the sign that right before sunrise, right before Alois Shachar is the darkest time of the night. We're holding by the end of the night. It's the darkest time of the night, and very, very soon we're going to get to the Yemos Mashiach. Don't forget that. You have to realize that everything's happening now is a lead up to Yemos Mashiach, and it's going to be a time period when we're going to live a life of total and absolute Amunah and B'tochen.